Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am Matt Capper and this is another video on Raid Shadow Legends. Today I want to explore PvP, arguably the driving force behind any and all online content for gaming in the gaming industry, certainly a major focus pushing towards mobile gaming and of course gaming in general. Arguably it is the biggest thing and the biggest feature and the feature that you have to get right. Recent examples of how not to get it right have filtered throughout all games. Think of the original Grand Theft Auto 5 and how it was poorly rolled out in the beginning and how important it is now to that game's continued success. Red Dead Redemption had the same kind of stumbling, and although they've gotten it right, it certainly did put a little bit of a damper on that game's online content. Unlike campaign modes or even open world campaign modes, which is a single player or even a co-op player, there is a finite end to the game. Well, in order to sell you loot packs and loot drops and all these other packs that they can sell you, microtransactions, they need a reason for you to continue to play. And for endgame players, that reason is player versus player or PvP, as opposed to player versus player versus enemy or PvE. In Raid Shadow Legends, that is no different. The campaign, the Doom Tower, faction wars, all these things, dungeons, they all have a finite end. When you look at the content of the game and you go into each section, there is a point at which you are done. When you are done the game in this part, I no longer have to do Nightmare. I have finished that content. They've even told me because I hit all the stars in all areas. You go to dungeons, same thing. If you can hit them all, yes, there's definite improvement you can make. You can slowly, and we talked about that in exploring meta, but in exploring PvE content, there is always a finite end to it. They can continue to add, but no matter what they add, it always ends up the same. There is, for example, in the Doom Tower, there is a definite end to the content. It is right here at the top, 120. It is also mostly static content. The developers can change out what's in each individual wave here. They can change and make new bosses, but once those have been explored, they are now dead. They are still cool. We still like doing them sometimes, but definitely there's a point which we just say stop and we no longer push new teams. We have the team that works. We just run through it and we just never look back or rarely look back and try to improve it at any point. PvP is different. The reason why PvP works is because it doesn't rely on the developers to change the content. The content is changed by the players themselves. In many games, there are a plethora of different versions of player versus player combat, and it signifies from very simple to very complex different ways of being able to test your skill against the others in the game. As a matter of fact, in the early 2000s, I was fortunate enough to help build and program a PvP system for a game called Evernight, or Monarchy was its predecessor, which was an online browser-based turn-based strategy game. But using a ladder system, we were able to make a PvP content and reset it at the same time as the main game, and it was actually really fun and really exciting to see how good you could build up your team, your strategy, and take out the opponents and see how well you could do. Even as far back as the 90s, PvP was still a driving force. Think of the original StarCraft, when people would bring their computers and to LAN parties so that people could have fun. Obviously, the development of the internet has made this a much more accessible piece, and therefore a much more important piece of the pie when it comes to gaming. Think of the online predecessors like Meridian 59, Ultima Online, that paved the way for things like EverQuest and of course Dark Age of Camelot, and now the undisputed king of that genre, WoW. There's also PvP in every other, there's battle royale type games like Fortnite. Everything is focused around pitting your skill against someone else. This, of course, is also in mobile games. Every mobile gacha game style like this has some form of PvP. With all that said, let's talk about how Raid does it right and how they could probably do it better. Currently, Raid only has two forms of PvP, and as Jay Giggs so infamously coined it in his video, they only have one. They have Arena, and they have Arena 3 times. The mechanic is quite simple. You go in, you create your defense, and that defense is what other teams are now going to fight. It is a passive system of PvP in that once I set my team, the offense then gets the opportunity to counter whatever I put out here and have the attempt to kill it. We use other things such as reaction gear, swift parry, we use high resistance, low resistance. We try whatever we can to get a win or make it more difficult for the enemy, but it is the same thing. The offense has the decided advantage because it is in a passive mode in that you are not there on defense, actually actively engaged in preventing the other 4 players or champions from winning. 3v3 is the exact same, except for now you're setting up 3 battles in a row, which really tests more about the total skill or / spend on your account, because now you have to make 3 teams like this and pit those teams in a way that hopefully you can get 1 or maybe 2 wins out of it when the offense fights you. And of course, on the offensive side, your job is to then look at these and, when you look at what you have available, find ways to beat each of these teams and see what you can do to gain your medals. The advantage of this is that it's really quite simple to program. There's not a whole lot of detail in the actual online scape. Building a arena where thousands or tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people can simultaneously fight against each other in a matchmaking system can be very complex, and I think it is something that Plarium to the date has not been able to do. But is it available in online games, mobile online games? Of course it is. 7 Deadly Sins had 2 versions of their PvP, both of which were dynamic matchmaking. This meant you queued yourself up with the team, someone else queued themselves up with the team. You didn't get to see what team they used until you were in the actual arena, and then you fought it out for supremacy. This does have some drawbacks because a lot of the times those who spend most win because meta was a much smaller subset of champions. I remember from 7 Deadly Sins, if you didn't have, 3 of the 4 champions, especially when they brought out the God of Sun, whose name I don't know why I can't remember right now, you were done for. You could not win. And then each banner, each new champion that they released would change the meta, but it was a very specific subset. There was a couple of counters, but for the most part there were 3 or 4 teams max that you'd be able to set in the arena. With having over 500, maybe close to 600 champions in the game right now, that may not be a realistic expectation for Plarium to put as their main scape in PvP. It also can't do things like you can in open world games where you can just put a server as PvP, and as you wander around, you end up fighting live opponents. Obviously, this is all turn-based strategy or turn-based RPG, I guess would be the best way to put it, in that when you're fighting all the other content, it's in waves, it's strictly meant to be against PvP, it's not dynamic at all, so the only thing they have is this sort of setup. I know that many of the other games like Marvel Strike Force, Future Revolutions, all these other ones do have some a little bit more proactive PvP and even better co-op where you can fight multiple people, fight a boss, which is something that Plarium might want to look into to spruce up a game that can otherwise get quite stale if you don't have something of the PvP scape to keep endgame players excited about playing the game. Continually bringing out new PvE content that still has a finite beginning and end is not going to satisfy those who have spent tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars in the game, or have really focused on being able to get really good at things like the arena. The other problem with it as it currently stands is the tiers. The tiers are also finite, which is fine. However, they are not weighted properly. All you are allowed in this final tier is 300 players, which means the other thousands upon thousands of players, maybe up to 10,000 now, as we progress in the game and the game ages and more people get good gear, good champions, it's getting a harder and harder to push into one of the 300, and it comes down to more and more pay to win. That is, the more you spend on gold and shards, the better chance you have to have the champions that you can to progress through Platinum Arena and get in there and end there on the one day of the week that it happens to reset. And of course, also the more and better artifacts you have to accompany that. All these things put together mean that while they can change the meta, they can add new champions that swap and switch the meta. At the end of the day, it comes down to you have to have the champions available. It's a small subset of the 500, though not as small as it would be if you play it like 7 Deadly Sins. And it comes down to, if you don't spend the money, the chances are you're not going to be able to compete at that level. Certainly RNG allows a few people to sneak in there that would otherwise be low spenders, quote unquote, but I hardly believe that someone who hasn't spent a single dime in the game in today's day and age can end up in Platinum anymore. There's just too many very high skill champions that need very expensive artifacts that are well developed and min-maxed to allow them to win. The other problem is it is not that difficult to get through everything else. They add bots, or not bots as they keep trying to say, in order to allow people to go through the Arbiter missions, which are heavily tied to these tiers. Instead of doing that, they could simply make these tiers more viable, but instead they push everyone into this big clout up here at 2,900 minimum in Gold 4, and then everyone just farms everyone to get their great haul, and there are players who should not be in this tier, and there are players that absolutely should be in this tier challenging for Platinum. And instead, what they have is a clump of players that are here and not so many in the other tiers. My free-to-play player account stays in Gold 3 and every once in a while jumps into Gold 4, and there is no way that should be even in the same breadth as my main account as far as skill, ability, champions, gear, you name it. That is a very poignant, indicative piece of how broken this tier system is for Raid Shadow Legends. So how can they fix it? Well, I think there's a couple of different options that they should look at. One should be a repairing of Classic Arena. 2 should be a revamp and a reimagining of 3v3. And the third should be 2 or 3 new versions that are absolutely available in other games that they could implement in this game to add to the excitement and fun of the game without just making it a pay to win, stay up till 2 in the morning if you're in North America, 3, 4 in the morning in North America to see and test your skill against the thousands of other high spend players in Platinum Arena. The first thing they need to do is make these tiers realistic again. And we said this the last time, there were bots not taken out of the arena, then they put them back in because of the uproar. But the reality is the missions for Arbiter, and Arbiter is absolutely a mainstay and a must-have to get, for most accounts, there are a few accounts where there are exceptions, to get to Gold 4. Once you get there and you develop your teams, Arbiter is actually a very, or a much less important champion in the Platinum Arena. If you look at Platinum Arena and you watch anyone who does resets, like WantToMess, for example, you'll see that Arbiter is very rarely used. She's used more for her attack up rather than her other skill set because going first is no longer in the meta of the game. But getting to there, absolutely Arbiter. Speed is still important from Gold 4 down, arguably Gold 4 down, but certainly Gold 3 down. And to get Arbiter, you must have Arbiter seems like a catch-22 that they never want to get themselves stuck in. So if they were to remove the Arbiter mission gold expectation, then they could easily tier these and feather these properly so that the highest skill players are pushing for Platinum, but most of them are sitting in Gold 4. Then you've got endgame in Golds 1 through 3, depending on your skill, ability, spend, and champion luck. And then you've got Silver for the mid to late game players and the early to mid game players Bronze. The other thing they would need to do in order to make this a realistic way of changing it is that the Great Hall should no longer have Bronze, Silver, and Gold, but should allow everyone to get gold bars. Just make it one bar for Bronze, or maybe 1 Bronze, 1 Gold, 2 Bronze, 1 Gold, something like that. And then you get into the Silver tier, you get 2, and then you get 3, 4, and 5, similar to how it is built now in Gold. But this sort of thing would mean that if you are a new to mid-game player and you're starting to have some success, but you're still sitting in the tier you should be in, like Bronze 4, Silver 1, you'd still be getting measurable success towards building up your Great Hall, which is such an important piece of the overall success of your account in both Doom Tower, other PvE content, and of course PvP. This would make things more fair. And honestly, the endgame players who've already maxed out their guild hall probably wouldn't feel that worried about it, because at the end of the day, they're still going to have better accounts, stronger champions, better artifacts, and they're not going to sit there and worry about some other player being able to get there quicker. This is a bigger issue of something I'm going to do in a future video talking about the new player experience, so we'll stop there. That would be the first opinion. In my opinion, the first fix they need to do is fix Classic Arena so that these tiers are tiered to the actual skill of the player, and therefore taken out of the missions to block Arbiter from getting, being able to get until you get to these numbers over here. They're staunch on saying no, but honestly, I do not see another way out of it. They can add tiers at the end, but that's just gonna push the problem further along. Platinum 2, Platinum 3, Platinum 4, allowing 1,000 people in Platinum. All these things sound good, but at the end of the day, the problem is that the majority of endgame players are sitting in Gold 4 when the endgame players should be in Gold 1 through 4 based on where they are on the PvP side of things. They have the mechanic already to make this work. They just have to actually do it and not tie it to the Arbiter missions. As far as the 3v3 arena, this is just arena times 3. It is boring. Most people don't like it. They're forced to do it by using clan versus clan. This is not a way to create a feature in the game. Most people don't like that. There are a few that do, but why wouldn't you actually make this a tag team arena rather than a 3v3? For example, you have to take a single set of heroes and see how many different champions you can kill before you lose. See how high you can go up the tier with your set of 4 champions. Or tag team. You have 5 champions, 4 are displayed. The 5th is a wild card on both sides. This way it is an actual tag team. You tag in your 5th champion when one of your champion dies. This would extend play for those of you who need that session time, Plarium, but for the rest of us, it would make it a more enjoyable game that we would actually have fun playing, because it would add a new level of skill in 3v3 that has previously been unrealized. The other thing I would like to see is different modes of PvP. The first and foremost, and most games have this, we need a friends list, and we need to be able to challenge both guild members and friends with our teams. We could have friendly wagers based on tokens from the clan tokens, or for example, the tokens for the bazaar. We could have fun betting with, not with real money, but with these in-game currency that you can't really buy, like the bars here. And that would be a fun little way for people to test out their teams and have a little fun and get a little clout. I promise you this feature would be heralded by most players, because they always want to see how they can do against their teammates. And at the end of the day, finding a teammate in here is next to impossible. And you don't want to do this when you're fighting in the arena. You feel bad killing a teammate and pushing them down a ladder that they need to otherwise have for, say, pushing platinum at the end, or whatever the case may be. They also should have blind PvP. That is a live system, or blind and live. They should have a live where you sit in a queue and you're queued up against another person, and you both get to take a turn-based thing where the turn meter, everything works the same, but is dynamic in the moment. So you can act and react to what you see on the screen and you see the opponent doing. This is the pinnacle of any PvP content in this style of game, and the fact that Plarium has not even had a whisper of trying to create this level of content is crazy to me. This is where they need to be. This is the end game of it. I also wouldn't mind a passive blind PvP, similar to how you have it set up now, but you don't get to see the defense. So you have to bring in a team that you feel is versatile, or you bring in a sharpshooter team that you think can just, it's either going to win hard or lose hard. There are different ways you can make that happen and have a little fun in that version of PvP. The final version of PvP, and this arguably to me is the most important, though not the pinnacle like I said, would be clan versus clan, where your team goes up against another clan's team, whether that's in a passive or active capacity. Being able to fight the other team in an engaged PvP manner in clan versus clan is what we all expected when we heard the word clan versus clan, and absolutely needs to be in the game. At the end of the day, Plarium suffers from having a stagnant PvP system that is the end game and the end driver for all players. It's in every game. No matter whether it's a game such as Cyberpunk that has been lauded and had that crazy awful opening to it. At the end of the day, if they can at some point in the future launch a competitive viable PvP system in their open world system, it'll save that game and make that game back on the roadmap. All these games are the same way, and that is what people strive for. Very few games can actually exist without that PvP content. I think of Mass Effect, which actually had an online piece to it. I think, like I said, Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead Redemption. And if you look at these, you look at Seven Deadly Sins, Marvel Strike Force, Star Wars Galaxies, all these games. Heck, the whole premise of some of the most popular and exciting games in this sphere were the games from Clash Royale and Clash of Clans, whose whole purpose was to attack each other. We need better from Plarium in this realm, and in order to get there, they need to do some heavy work and some heavy lifting to create new structures to allow this dynamic PvP, blind PvP, and clan versus clan PvP, and something different in the 3v3 to make this game viable in the years to come. That's all I have on exploring PvP. What do you think? What is it that Plarium needs to do? Do you think that there's a mode of PvP in a game you've played that they should explore? Let me know in the comments down below. But at this, I'm going to end this video and say thank you very much for watching. I appreciate you, and we'll see you in the next video.